She only wanted warmth. But he discovered what she really needed was far more dangerous. The dense, impenetrable forest of the Pacific Northwest felt like a force of nature all its own, majestic and wild. The sun had already set, leaving the sky painted in deep hues of purple and dark blue, while the moon, shy and pale, began to rise on the horizon. A soft wind rustled the trees with a melody that felt almost melancholy, as if it were whispering ancient secrets to those willing to listen. Lucas was alone, and he loved it that way. He'd always felt more comfortable among trees and animals than with other humans. He was there for work, as a biologist, studying the region's unique flora, known for its rich biodiversity. It wasn't his first time deep in the forest, but this time something felt different. Maybe it was the unusually warm weather for this time of year, or maybe it was the sense that he was about to be pulled into something beyond the bounds of science. He sat on the edge of a clearing, observing the vegetation around the fire he had built to keep warm. The wood cracked and snapped in the flames, while a gentle breeze made the nearby leaves sway, as if they were about to reveal something important. Lucas pulled out his field notebook and, as usual, began jotting down small details about the plants and insects he'd come across. Then came the sound, not the gentle hum of the forest, but something different. A footstep, a break in the rhythm. It was faint, but clear, a sound that didn't belong. Lucas immediately lifted his head, setting the notebook aside. His eyes scanned the darkness, searching for the source of the noise. He didn't see anything at first, but something deep inside told him he was no longer alone. Slowly, he stood up, his breath quickening. His instincts as a scientist and explorer urged him to investigate, but something else pulled at his attention, something almost supernatural. He swallowed hard, trying to steady his thoughts. A movement to his left caught his eye. A shadow, but not just any shadow, a human figure. Or at least, it looked human. It moved closer to the fire, its silhouette blurred by the mist and firelight. The figure's movements were graceful, almost otherworldly, and when it finally stepped into the light, Lucas felt as if a wave of electricity hit him. His eyes widened. His heart pounded. She didn't look like any human he'd ever seen. She had the form of a woman, but her skin was a deep, mossy green, like the ancient forest floor itself. There was nothing ordinary about her. Her face was delicate, but her eyes, those eyes, were not human. They glowed with an intensity he couldn't begin to understand, a golden light that seemed to carry the weight of timeless wisdom and endless sorrow. She looked like something from another world. Her hair was white, not platinum blonde or silver, but white like untouched snow on remote mountain peaks. It floated gently in the breeze, as if guided by some invisible force. Lucas froze, unsure what to do. The woman, or whatever she was, watched him with an unsettling calm. She didn't seem threatening, but there was something about her that stirred both awe and fear. She stepped forward, her bare feet barely making a sound on mossy ground. Even her movements didn't seem natural, like the forest itself was bending around her. Her eyes never left Lucas, and the air around them grew heavy with silence. "Are you lost?" he finally managed to ask, his voice shaky, barely above a whisper, like his tongue couldn't keep up with what his eyes were seeing. She remained silent for a long moment, as if weighing his question. Her lips moved slightly, and when her words came, they weren't what he expected. "I'm not lost," she said, her voice low and smooth, but charged with an emotion that seemed to strike Lucas on a physical level. "But you are." Lucas furrowed his brow. Her words were cryptic, almost incomprehensible. The woman, or the being, seemed to be speaking some deeper truth, something he couldn't quite understand, but that somehow made perfect sense. I'm not lost," he tried to argue, but his words felt small in her presence. How could he be lost? He was just doing his job, and yet something inside him knew she was right. She stepped closer to the fire now, and the flames illuminated her full face. Her expression was unreadable, but her eyes, they held a sadness that cut deep. It was as if she knew something he never would, something he never even dreamed was possible. Then she looked into the fire, and her voice softened even more. "I didn't come here just for warmth. I'm searching for something else, something you don't understand, but maybe you need to." Lucas's heart pounded in his chest. He had no idea what she meant, but her words carried a hidden message, one he couldn't quite decipher. She came even closer to the fire, and Lucas felt the air grow warmer around them, the flames reacting to her presence. His eyes stayed locked on her, and he couldn't stop the flood of questions in his mind. Who was she? What did she really want? And more importantly, what did she mean to him? You don't know what it means to feel warmth, she said again, her voice carrying an intensity that made Lucas wonder if she was talking about more than just physical heat. But maybe I can show you. Lucas's reply caught in his throat. He didn't know what was happening, but something deep inside told him that everything he thought he knew about the world, about reality, was about to be turned upside down in a way he never imagined. The minutes ticked by slowly, and the fire wrapped them in a comforting warmth, but her presence brought with it an odd tension. Lucas struggled to make sense of what he had just seen and heard. Part of him wanted to stay. Another part screamed at him to run. His logical, scientific mind, usually so grounded, was collapsing under the weight of what his senses were showing him. She stood there before him, an image so surreal it felt like a dream. The calm on her face only deepened Lucas's discomfort. There was something haunting in those golden eyes, something that made him feel as if he were on the verge of uncovering a truth he wasn't ready to face. "Are you alone?" he finally asked, his voice steadier now. But it wasn't just a question. It was filled with urgency. He needed to understand what she was doing here, why she was here, and what she truly wanted. She stared at him with those piercing eyes, and instead of answering directly, she did something that sent a chill down his spine. She stepped away from the fire, moving with a grace that seemed to defy nature, and extended her hand toward the thick forest around them. The wind, which had been calm, began to pick up, blowing harder, bending the trees in strange, unnatural ways. The starlight above flared brightly for a brief moment, and then, as if a veil had been lifted, Lucas felt it. Something had shifted in the air. He couldn't explain it, but the atmosphere had changed. It wasn't just the wind. It was like the very shadows of the forest were reacting to her presence. Lucas looked around, sensing eyes watching him from the darkness. The peaceful silence of night was gone, replaced by something heavier, something threatening. "There's something wrong here," she finally said, her voice low, laced with tension. "They know I'm here." A cold shiver ran down Lucas's back. "Who are they?" he asked, his voice tinged with growing panic. He could feel it. Whatever was out there, it wasn't human. The alien woman stepped closer to him, and Lucas watched her with rising apprehension. Her eyes glowed even brighter, reflecting the firelight. "I'm different," she said, "and because of that, I can't stay hidden for long. They'll come for me, and if you let me stay, they'll come for you too." "Who are they? What's going on?" Lucas asked, his anxiety escalating. "They're hunters," she said gravely, "but not ordinary ones. They track beings like me. Anything that's different, anything that might be a threat. And I'm a threat to them." Lucas took a step back, his mind reeling. "Then why are you here? What do you want from me?" His voice cracked under the weight of confusion and fear. It all felt like a nightmare he couldn't wake from. She looked at him with even greater intensity. "I need your help. You're the only one here. If you don't help me, they'll find us, and there won't be anyone left to stop them." Her voice, though calm, carried a trace of desperation, as if the pressure of the situation was finally breaking through her calm exterior. Suddenly, a series of sharp sounds tore through the night, branches snapping under something heavy. Lucas spun around, eyes wide, scanning the darkness. The noises were getting louder, closer. Something was approaching, something big, and it wasn't moving aimlessly. It had purpose. It had intent. "What's happening? Who's coming?" Lucas shouted, his whole body tensing with fear. She turned to him, her eyes shining with urgency and sorrow. "They're here." The heavy footsteps grew louder, now joined by deep, guttural growls that echoed through the trees. It was coming fast, and it wasn't alone. The alien looked at Lucas, then turned to face the forest with astonishing speed. Lucas watched her, frozen, his brain trying to process the danger. He didn't know what was coming, but he knew he had to move. The panic surged. "They're coming. What do I do?" he cried out, panic gripping his chest. She looked at him with a grave expression. "Run. Run now. Lucas didn't think. He just acted. Something primal inside him snapped to life. He grabbed his backpack and, without a second thought, ran into the trees as fast as he could, away from the fire, away from the sounds. The forest closed in around him, darker and denser than ever. Branches scratched at his arms and legs, and behind him, the thunderous footsteps grew louder. But he wasn't running alone anymore. She was right beside him, running effortlessly, her slim, otherworldly figure moving with a speed Lucas could barely keep up with. But something in her expression made him hesitate. She knew something he didn't, something that was about to happen. And now, he was trapped in it, with no way back. The danger was closer than he could have ever imagined. And the only thing he knew for sure was that he absolutely couldn't leave her behind. Because deep down, he knew she wasn't just some alien on the run. She was the key to something far greater, something that could change the fate of everything. The run felt endless. Lucas's heart pounded like a frantic drumbeat, each step heavier than the last. The air, though cool, felt thick, charged with a tension so strong, it was as if the forest itself sensed the approaching threat. He could no longer hear the sound of his own footsteps, only the crashing noise behind them that echoed like an unstoppable chase through the night. She ran beside him, her silhouette moving with an unearthly grace. She didn't look tired. She didn't even seem like she was trying. Her strides were light but fast, like she was guided by something more than just instinct. "They're getting closer," she said, her voice soft but laced with an unmistakable urgency. "You have to run faster." Lucas glanced at her, a storm of fear and confusion building inside him. He couldn't decide what was more surreal, running through the woods with an alien woman, or the terrifying presence that was closing in behind them. He wanted to ask what exactly was chasing them, but he already knew they had no time. All he could do was run. The forest grew tighter the deeper they went, trees pressing in like they were trying to trap them. The moonlight barely filtered through the thick canopy now, and the darkness around them grew heavier with every step. Lucas blinked, struggling to adjust his eyes, but the sensation of being watched only intensified. The fear crept deeper, slowing his breath and weighing down his legs. Then he heard it, a roar, deep and distorted, like a wild animal, but far more terrifying. Lucas turned, and for the first time, saw what was chasing them. In the shadows, two burning red eyes flared to life. And then, out of the darkness, a massive shape emerged. A hulking creature with scale-black skin, dagger-like claws, and teeth meant for ripping flesh from bone. It moved fast, far too fast for its size, and the sound of its heavy limbs crushing through the underbrush made Lucas's blood freeze. He felt a cold wave of dread wash over him. The thing was like a nightmare given form, something no human mind was meant to see. And its eyes, those burning eyes, weren't locked on him. They were locked on her. "He came for me," she whispered, not even looking back. "He's a hunter, the most dangerous of them." "But what is that?" Lucas stammered, panic gripping his voice. "What does it want?" "It wants me dead," she said plainly. "And because of that, it wants you dead too." Lucas tried to absorb her words, but his thoughts were spiraling. "Wants her dead? What the hell did that even mean?" He didn't know what was real anymore. Didn't know what this was. All he knew was that the monster was closing in, each thundering step shaking the forest around them. "Then why don't you do something?" he shouted. "You're from another world. Can't you fight that thing?" She didn't turn to him, but her expression hardened. Her focus never left the creature, as if she was waiting for something. Calculating. "I can fight," she said, "but not without risk, and not without consequences." "What consequences?" Lucas shouted, the desperation in his voice cracking. He was beginning to realize she possessed a power he couldn't even comprehend. And more than that, he was beginning to realize she wasn't afraid for herself. She was afraid for him. Then she finally turned to him. Her golden eyes caught the moonlight, and the cold clarity in her voice chilled him to the bone. "If I use my power now," she said, "the entire forest will burn. And more than that, I would destroy you too." Her words hit him like a punch to the chest. Lucas felt a knot form in his throat. He didn't fully understand what she meant, but he knew this was bigger than either of them. And if they didn't act soon, that thing would reach them before they had a chance to fight back. "Then what do we do?" he asked, muscles tense, already too exhausted to keep running much longer. "Stay behind me," she said simply. And for a moment, Lucas thought she was joking. But there was no humor in her voice. She was deadly serious. "I'll handle him." The creature was closing in fast, the sound of its claws scraping against rocks and branches growing louder by the second. Lucas could still hear the distant roar of its fury. He tried to hide behind a tree, but he knew if the alien didn't do something soon, they were finished. She turned to face the monster, her hands raised in front of her, as if calling upon a force Lucas couldn't begin to understand. A wave of energy seemed to radiate from her, faint but intense. The air around her began to hum, vibrating with a power beyond comprehension. "It's you or me, monster." Her voice wasn't just a threat, it was a promise, a warning of something massive about to unfold. The beast growled, its rage burning wilder than ever in its glowing eyes. It leapt forward, claws extended toward the alien. But before it could strike, a burst of light exploded between them. The force was so intense it knocked Lucas to the ground. He watched as the creature was hurled backward, its fury momentarily silenced. The battle had begun. The fight between the alien and the creature was as violent as it was surreal. Lucas, still dazed, could barely comprehend what he was seeing. The light pulsing from her warped the space around them, creating a vortex of raw energy that sparked through the air. The creature, once seemingly unstoppable, was thrown back by a blow so powerful it shattered trees like twigs. Still on the ground, Lucas gasped for breath. Fear gripped him, but something else began to rise inside. Urgency. He knew this wasn't going to be over quickly. The monster wouldn't give up that easily. But now, he wasn't alone. She had stopped the creature's charge, but at a cost. Her energy, once radiant and powerful, now seemed fragile. She staggered back, sweat glistening on her skin, her hands trembling. The creature roared again, its body already healing, regenerating. "I don't have much time left," she whispered, her voice darker than Lucas had ever heard. "If we don't end this now, we're both going to die here." Lucas pushed himself up, his body aching, but his mind sharper than ever. He didn't know how to help. What could he possibly do against something like that? But one thing was clear. He had to try. He couldn't just stand by and watch. "Tell me what to do," he shouted, desperation breaking his voice. He looked in her golden eyes, searching for answers, but what he saw was pain and exhaustion. She looked back at him, her gaze burning with a mix of sorrow and determination. "I need a link, a bond, someone to connect with my energy. Only then can I defeat it." She paused. Her next words felt like they carried the weight of galaxies. "Only you can give me that, Lucas." The pressure on him was crushing. A bond? He had no idea what that meant. How could he, just a human, possibly help her defeat a monster like this? And yet, the creature was closing in, eyes burning like fire, seething with primal hatred. But how? "I'm just human. I don't have powers. I don't have anything like you do." Lucas's voice cracked. She took a shaky breath, hands still glowing faintly with energy. "You have something far stronger than you know, whether you believe or not. You've already done more for me than anyone ever has. You have the strength of the heart. That's what connects us. That's what will save us." Lucas swallowed hard. He wasn't ready for this. He wasn't sure if he ever could be. But something inside his chest, a flicker of fire, was growing. He had risked everything to help her, even when he didn't understand why. And now it was life or death. He had to believe. He had to leap. "Tell me what to do," he said, stepping closer, voice firm now. "I trust you. Take my hand." Now, her voice was more commanding than ever. Without hesitation, Lucas reached out and placed his hand in hers. Her skin was cool against his, but the instant their hands met, the air exploded with energy. It was like a current surge between them, pure fire racing through his bones, all the way to the core of his being. He felt something shake, not just in his body, but in his soul. The connection wasn't just physical, it was deep, emotional, cosmic. She wasn't just an alien anymore. She was a part of him now. And somehow, he knew she saw him the same way. The energy around them surged, forming a brilliant sphere of light, a glowing field pulsing from their joined hands. The creature, mid-leap, froze in place, stunned by an invisible force. She closed her eyes, channeling everything into the bond. Now, Lucas, don't let go. We go all the way together. The light between them exploded like a supernova, and the monster was hit head-on. It screamed, a burst of rage mixed with pain, then collapsed, stunned by the force of the impact. But it wasn't over. The monster wasn't defeated yet. The battle had only just begun. If you've ever rooted for an impossible love, hit subscribe. There are plenty more stories like this coming. Even after that blast of energy sent it flying backward, the monster was far from beaten. It slowly got back up, its dark, scaly body still pulsing with a raw, primal power. Its red eyes locked onto the alien and Lucas, burning with fury like never before. The monster's rage wasn't just physical. It felt like a thirst for revenge, like it knew there was a weakness there to exploit. Lucas was still reeling from the sudden connection with the alien. His senses were overwhelmed. The feeling of having tied his fate to hers was crushing. He looked at her, hoping for some guidance, but she was focused on maintaining their bond, her hands trembling slightly, the energy she radiated flickering between strong and fragile. The monster roared again, its shrill cry cutting through the air with almost physical force. It lunged forward, claws sharp and ready to tear through anything in its path. But before it could move, the alien stepped in front of Lucas, her body trembling with an unstable energy. "Get out of here," she shouted, urgency thick in her voice. "I'll hold it off, but you need to run. Now." Lucas wanted to yell back, to argue, but no words came out. Their connection was too deep, and he knew any wrong move could be deadly. He saw what she was trying to do. Sacrifice herself, distract the monster so he could escape. But Lucas wasn't about to let that happen. Not after everything they'd been through. "No, I'm not leaving you alone," he yelled, his chest tightening at the thought of abandoning her. He was just starting to understand what she meant to him, and he couldn't just run away. But she didn't hear him. With a quick motion, she raised one hand, forming a shimmering barrier of energy between them and monster. The light was blinding, a pulsating wall emitting a strange, powerful force. She looked at Lucas, her expression grim. "You don't understand, Lucas. I can't protect you forever. The bond we've made isn't simple. It's draining me with every second. I need time to recover, and you don't have that luxury." He looked at her, and for the first time since this all started, he saw her vulnerability. The woman who seemed invincible, with those golden eyes and supernatural strength, was now fragile, almost human. She was fighting something bigger than herself, and somehow, that made him want to fight even harder for her. The monster surged forward again, smashing through the energy barrier with brutal force. She cried out in pain, but kept her hand raised, trying to form another shield. Sparks of energy rained down around them, lighting up the forest darkness like lightning. The impact was so strong the ground trembled beneath their feet, and Lucas felt it too, as if the force itself struck him. "She won't hold on much longer, Lucas," a voice screamed inside his mind. He knew it was true. The alien was weakening fast, and the fight wasn't over. Desperation rising, Lucas looked around. The trees that once stood as a natural defense were now falling all around, toppled by the violence of the battle. The forest was collapsing, but something else caught his eye, a gap in the ground, a small hidden cave nearly swallowed by tree trunks. The thought of running, leaving the monster behind, hiding until the alien could fight again, was almost irresistible. He looked back at her, searching for an answer, and saw her eyes, so tired, so fragile. She had no strength left to stop him. "Go there," she ordered, her voice weak. "If you love me, go now." He hesitated, torn. Going to the cave meant survival, but leaving her behind might mean her death. And there was no guarantee he'd make it back in time. The monster growled closer now, and the alien raised her hand again, struggling to block its approach. But it was clear she was losing this fight inside herself. She was on the edge of collapse. Lucas knew what he had to do. He had to try. He had to run, not just for his life, but for hers. He grabbed her hand one last time, locking eyes with hers, trying to say everything his words couldn't. "I'll come back for you, I promise. I'll get you out of here. We'll both get out alive." She looked at him with intensity, a mix of pain and hope burning in those golden eyes. "Be fast, Lucas, please." With a heavy heart and fear tightening his chest, Lucas stepped away. Each step toward the cave felt harder than the last. The monster was closing in fast, its shadow dragging behind like a dark specter. But he had to reach that cave. He had to survive, so they could fight together again. But when he finally reached the cave's entrance, reality hit him hard. He had left her behind. He'd left the alien with the monster. And now what was next? The darkness inside the cave was a refuge, but its silence brought no peace to Lucas. He sank down on the rocky floor, his mind swirling like a storm. Heavy footsteps and distant growls echoed outside, constantly reminding him of his choice. He'd left the alien at risk while he hid. Guilt and fear twisted inside him, unbearable. The monster hadn't come for him yet. But what was waiting out there? What had it done to her? His mind kept spinning the same question, with no answer. Every breath was a struggle. Lucas didn't know how he could go back, how he could face her again after running when she needed him most. She'd told him to save himself, but he never imagined feeling so hollow for it. He knew he wasn't ready to lose someone like her, not after everything they'd been through, or could still go through. Hours passed. He tried not to overthink what was happening outside, but every moment felt like he was drifting away from something essential. A part of him seemed lost with the alien, like she was an extension of who he was. Like the bond they formed wasn't just physical or about power, it was emotional. She touched him in a way he never thought possible, and now he didn't know how to go on without her. He closed his eyes, trying to focus, but memories of his escape kept flooding in. Her cry of pain, that desperate look, the promise to come back, and that powerful feeling that she believed in him, truly trusted him. Suddenly, a faint light appeared at the cave's entrance. The glow was weak, but enough to illuminate his face. Lucas stood, senses sharp. It was her. She entered with difficulty, her body bent from exhaustion, but her eyes still shone with the same fierce light. He stared in disbelief. The monster hadn't taken her down. She'd survived, and she was here, coming back to him. "You're alive," Lucas said, voice rough with relief. She smiled weakly but sincerely. Whatever was happening, this alien was stronger than he'd imagined. There was something in her eyes that showed an unbreakable will, a strength he now felt growing inside himself too. "I told you I'd come back for you, didn't I?" she replied, her voice soft but filled with a depth he couldn't ignore. "I couldn't leave you alone, not even now." Lucas looked at her more closely, warmth filling his chest. She was exhausted but not beaten. He could feel the alien was more vulnerable than before, but her determination seemed renewed, and he felt something new inside himself. The guilt for hiding gave way to a sense of urgency. He needed to help her. More than that, he needed to be someone she could trust, someone who would do the impossible to protect her. They had a bond now, and he wasn't willing to let it go. "Save me when you had no reason to," Lucas said, his voice cracking with emotions he still couldn't control. "I don't know what I'd do without you, but I promised I'd come back, and I'm not breaking that promise." She moved closer slowly, effort clear in every step, yet still commanding. She placed a warm, steady hand on his shoulder. "You've done more than I ever could have hoped," she said. "Your heart is stronger than any power I know. And now, you have something I need more than any ability: courage. You gave me that." They stood silent for a moment, the battle's tension still hanging in the air. But there was something deep, quiet, and full of understanding between them. Lucas could feel the weight of her words, and, for the first time, knew there was a true connection there. They weren't just battle allies. They were becoming parts of each other. And that was more than he'd ever imagined possible with someone from another world. He stood slowly, taking her hand in his and holding it tighter than before. Now, he knew what needed to be done. He wasn't afraid to be vulnerable around her anymore. He wasn't afraid to fight. They were stronger together. "Let's finish this," Lucas said, his voice steady. "No matter what happens, I'll fight by your side. We're ending this, once and for all." She smiled, soft but full of a strength that wrapped around them both. The fight was still ahead, but now, more than ever, they were ready. Together. The sky above the forest was dark, heavy clouds rolling in, and the temperature had dropped sharply. The ground trembled beneath Lucas and the alien as they cautiously moved through the broken trees. The monster was close. Too close. The sound of its claws scraping the rocky ground echoed through the air, a constant reminder of the battle that was coming. Lucas could feel his heart pounding in his chest. Every step he took beside her increased his sense of urgency. He knew there was no more time left. The alien was exhausted. Her energy was fading. The bond they shared seemed to be the only thing keeping her standing. Without it, he didn't know what would happen. The creature stood right in front of them, emerging from the shadows like a storm. Its red eyes glowed with hatred, and its sharp teeth gleamed in the light from the last sparks of the alien's energy. The beast was ready to strike, and Lucas felt terror take over his body. It was impossible to predict what would happen next, but one thing was clear. He couldn't let her face this alone. "Here we go," Lucas muttered, his hand steady on the energy blade he'd pulled from his backpack, his last line of defense against the monster. He felt the alien move closer, her body vibrating with unstable energy, but her presence was reassuring. "We have to win this now," she replied, her voice faltering from exhaustion, but still determined. "There's no more time. Stay close to me." The monster roared fiercely, sending a wave of grotesque heat through the air, like a massive furnace. The trees around them began to crack under the pressure of the roar, and the ground beneath their feet seemed to give way with every movement. Lucas had no choice. He knew the fight would be tough, but he had to protect her. He would protect her to the end. Before he could react, the monster lunged forward with terrifying speed. Its claws sliced through the air, aiming straight for the alien. She raised her hands, creating a glowing energy barrier, but the attack's force was so strong that the barrier nearly shattered the moment it made contact. The alien bent under the blow, pain clear on her face, but she didn't back down. "Get out of the way," Lucas shouted, panic filling his voice. But the alien didn't move. She was breathing heavily, her eyes shining with the remaining energy she could muster. The bond between them was growing stronger, but that also meant she was giving everything she had, and it was wearing her down. With impressive speed, the monster struck again. This time, the alien barely managed to react. Lucas didn't hesitate. He threw himself forward, intercepting the attack with his energy blade. The impact was brutal, and the blade bent under the creature's strength. He cried out in pain as the monster slammed him to the side. But the most terrifying sound wasn't his own. It was the alien's scream, a mix of agony and despair. Lucas got back up, blood streaming down his face, but the only thing keeping him on his feet was the need to protect her. She was trying to stand, eyes locked on the monster, but her energy was nearly gone. He looked at her, and in that moment, everything seemed to stop. The world around them disappeared. There was only him and her. The promise he made to her, the deep connection between them, it all seemed to merge into a single point. He knew the decisive moment had come. "I'm not going to let you die," he said with a pure intensity that felt almost tangible. "No matter what happens, I won't let you." She looked at him, her golden eyes reflecting the strength of his determination. "Lucas, you can't," she tried to speak, but her voice broke. But he wasn't listening anymore. He had made up his mind. He would take the risk, no matter the cost. With renewed strength, he stood up, determined. The energy blade in his hand seemed to come alive. He charged at the monster, steady steps, adrenaline flooding his body. The creature growled, raising its claws, but Lucas didn't hesitate. With a fierce scream, he struck. The blade cut through the air with deadly precision, hitting the monster right in the chest. The impact was so strong the creature faltered but didn't fall. The monster roared, an explosion of fury and pain, then attacked again, faster than before. Then something changed. The alien, with the last remnants of her strength, joined him. Her eyes glowed with an ancient power, and together they unleashed a wave of energy that wrapped around the creature, trapping it in a sphere of light so intense it seemed to dissolve the very air. The monster screamed one final time as the energy consumed its flesh. It tried to resist, but had no strength left. Finally, with one last breath, the monster crumbled, leaving nothing but ashes on the ground. Lucas dropped to his knees, exhausted, lungs burning as he struggled to catch his breath. But beside him, the alien was standing, weak but alive. They had won. Together. Silence took over the forest after the battle. The trees, though still reverberating with the last echoes of the fight, seemed peaceful, as if nature itself was drained, absorbing the impact of the violence that had occurred. The air felt lighter, but the scent of destruction still lingered nearby. The monster, which had caused so much fear and pain, was gone, reduced to ashes. Yet somehow, the fight they'd fought wasn't just against it. It was against fate, against who they were, and against the limits they'd imposed on themselves. Lucas sat down on the ground, resting his hands on his knees, still out of breath. Every movement felt heavier than it should. The physical effort, the fear, and the adrenaline had finally worn off, leaving only deep exhaustion. But he was alive. They were alive. The alien, though weak, had survived as well. She was beside him, her golden eyes watching the ruins of the battle, a mix of relief and fatigue in her expression. She still trembled, but the pain no longer showed on her face, even though her energy was almost gone. I don't know what to say. Lucas's voice was hoarse, still caught in the intensity of the moment. I can hardly believe we made it. What do we do now? She looked at him, and her smile was shy but deep, like a promise of something more. Now you breathe, and then you teach me how to live like you do. Here, together. The sound of her voice seemed to reach something inside him. He studied her more closely, as if finally realizing the depth of the bond that had formed between them. This alien, with her green skin and white hair, who had come from space, was no longer a distant mystery. She was someone he understood, someone he was willing to protect at any cost. I'm not someone easy to keep up with, Lucas said, laughing without much humor, still dazed from the battle and the closeness of death. But it seems like you don't really mind. She tilted her head, chuckling softly before moving closer to him. It's never been about who you are or what you do. It's about the fact that you took the risk. And even when fear was overwhelming, you didn't run. She reached out and, with a slow gesture, touched his face. The feeling of her touch, warm and alive, ran across his skin, making him close his eyes for a moment, absorbing the simple gesture loaded with meanings he still couldn't fully grasp. You saved me, she whispered. But more than that, you gave me something I never knew I needed. Trust. Hope. I think. You taught me to be more than I am. I don't know how to explain it, but I can't live in a world where you don't exist anymore. The alien smiled, a soft smile with something more in it. It was as if their battle was just a reflection of what they had truly won. The understanding that love, trust, and courage were forces stronger than any outside threat. So, let's keep moving forward, she said, helping him to his feet. Let's rebuild, not just this place, but what connects us. The sky above began to clear slowly, clouds dissipating to reveal the faint glow of the moon. The forest, which once seemed at war with them, now felt peaceful, as if it had absorbed the pain and with it, the relief. The danger was gone, for now at least. Lucas took a deep breath, looking at the alien by his side. He knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but he wasn't afraid anymore. Together, they had faced the impossible, and no matter how uncertain the future was, he knew there was now something that couldn't be broken. They had overcome everything life had thrown at them, and nothing, and no one, could tear them apart now. She looked at him, her eyes shining with renewed strength. I'll be with you, Lucas. Always. He nodded, his heart lighter than it had ever been. And I with you. Together, they moved forward, ready for whatever came next, knowing the greatest battle they had won was the one inside themselves. Time passed. Not much, but enough for Lucas to feel life finding its rhythm again. The forest, once a battlefield, was beginning to heal. Nature, relentless in its resilience, was rebuilding, reminding everyone that despite conflict and destruction, life always finds a way. Lucas and the alien walked through the trees, hand in hand, feeling the damp earth beneath their feet and the gentle breeze that seemed to carry the promise of new beginnings. She looked at him, the strength in her golden eyes reflecting the soft light of dawn. There was something there, a calmness he never knew he wanted until that moment. Something deep, something he thought he'd never have. A home, a true connection. The battle had changed everything, but in a way he never thought possible. Their journey hadn't been just about surviving external monsters, but also the monsters within: doubt, fear, and even loneliness. But now, he felt stronger than ever because he was no longer alone. "You knew from the start this wouldn't be easy, right?" Lucas said, smiling with a lightness he never imagined possible. She smiled back, calm and steady, as if sharing a truth he now understood. "Yes, but I also knew it would be worth it. Because there's no growth without facing our biggest fears." The bond they had formed was more than just a link for survival. It was a tie that transcended words. They were no longer two beings from different worlds. They were two hearts that somehow had always belonged to each other. The alien, with all her complexity and mystery, and Lucas, with his raw, imperfect humanity, had found each other, and somehow completed one another. "So what happens now?" he asked, pausing for a moment, gazing at the horizon. She didn't hesitate. "Now we keep going. We find out together what the future holds. Whatever it is, we can't face it alone." And in that moment, Lucas knew she was right. The future, with all its uncertainties and challenges, was no longer something he feared. With her by his side, with the love and trust they had built between them, he knew that whatever happened, they would face it together. What had started as a nightmare had transformed into something much greater, something he never imagined possible. It wasn't just about defeating enemies. It was about discovering who they truly were to each other, and what that meant in such a vast and unknown universe. I never thought I'd find someone like you," Lucas said, his voice full of emotion. She looked at him, her eyes shining with a quiet wisdom. "And I never thought I'd find someone like you either. But we found each other, Lucas. And that's what matters." Together, with hearts full of silent promises, they walked toward the horizon where the sunlight rose over the land like a new hope. The world ahead was vast, filled with mysteries, challenges, but also possibilities. And now, they had something they could never lose: each other. Their journey's end was not an ending, but just the beginning of something even greater. Months had passed since the battle in the forest. The world outside had gone on, but for Lucas and the alien, everything felt changed. They had found a new place, a city far from the chaos of the big metropolises, where they could live without the constant weight of being hunted or chased. Now, under a clear blue sky, atop a small hill, they gazed out at the horizon, side by side. "You never told me your real name," Lucas asked, curiosity in his voice. She smiled softly, her eyes still shining with the same mystery as before, now accompanied by a tenderness he had grown used to. "In my language, the name my parents gave me means light among the stars. But if you prefer, you can call me Lyra, like the stars we see at night." Lucas smiled back. He had always known her name held something special. She truly was a light in his life, a presence that illuminated even the darkest corners of his existence. "Lyra, it's perfect. But what about you? How do you see me after all?" She laughed, a sound like music in the air. "You? The man who risked everything for me. There are no words to express what you've meant. Maybe you're the reason the stars exist, to remind everyone that even in the darkest places, there can be light." Her words echoed softly inside Lucas. He had always known their love was different, but he had no idea it would be so deep. Lyra wasn't just the alien he had saved. She was his partner, his soulmate. Together, they had created something no one could destroy, a connection that transcended worlds and barriers. The sun was beginning to set behind distant hills, painting the sky in golden and orange hues, as if the very universe was celebrating what they had achieved. "So what comes next?" Lucas asked, looking at her, his eyes shining with the same intensity as the sky around them. "Now we live," she answered. "Now we face everything hand in hand, no matter where life takes us." She moved closer, and they embraced, feeling stronger and more united than ever. The future, with all its uncertainties, lay before them, but now they had each other. And with that, they knew nothing would be impossible. The camera slowly pulled away, capturing the couple beneath the starry sky, the soft sound of the wind in their ears. What seemed like the end of a journey was only the beginning of a new one, a new chapter, not just for them, but for the entire universe, because together they were unstoppable. Have you ever rooted for an impossible love? Because this story between a human and an alien is just the beginning. If you believe that love can overcome any obstacle, subscribe and share this journey with us. Stay tuned, because many more stories like this are on their way. The story has ended, but what will the future hold for Lucas and Lyra? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more intergalactic adventures.